You have to show up and campaign in every single state. It's significant because even though you're winning, let's say you're winning 55, 60% to 40, 45% across the board, the other person is still going to look close in the delegate count. Okay? They're going to stay in it. That matters. The allocation rules are going to vary state to state. So some states are going to, for example, you win, and so they're going to give you, let's say you get a majority of, or you get 40%, but you get the votes. They're always going to give you at least half the delegates. Okay? Sometimes they're going to give you more than that. But it depends. But let's take 2008 Texas. In 2008, there we go, let's do it this way. In 2008, Texas changes the rules. Texas moves from a primary-only system to a half-primary caucus system. The Clinton campaign and the Obama campaign are campaigning in Texas. But the Obama campaign was well aware of this rule change and got on the ground. Do you guys know what the difference is between a primary and a caucus? Yes, in a caucus situation, we all meet together and together we decide for our one vote. Okay, so think about that. In a primary situation, it's like you're voting. Okay, you go into a ballot box, you mark who you want, and you go ahead. Clinton beats Obama in the primaries 3-1 in Texas. But Obama wins the caucuses because his ground game was better. Because his organization had people go into caucuses and argue on his behalf. And so he won the caucuses as a result. And look at this, the final delegate tally from Texas, 99-94 in favor of Obama. Even though 3 times as many voted for Clinton, right? If it had been done proportionally, she would have got 143. Basically, he would have got 49 less, she would have got 49 more. The final tally in 2008, look at how close it is. 1766, add 49 to that, what do you get? Come on, guys. 1815. Okay, you get 1815. Sorry, you take 49 away. So I had you do the wrong thing anyway. So it's 17, right? Now add 49 to 1639, and what do you get? 88. So still a win, 1717 to 1688. But understand, Texas came early, which also meant that gave the Obama campaign momentum. So it would have been a squeaker, and it may not have gone that way, all because his campaign knew the rules of the game. In a caucus, we all have to agree on one vote, okay? As opposed to, we each get our own individual vote in a primary. This is the only year Texas did this. They didn't do it ever again. All right? But superdelegates are something that the Democrats have. Do you guys know what the purpose of superdelegates are? I tell you up here, so it's kind of giving it away. What's the purpose of superdelegates? Who are they? They hold the party together. They're elected office holders under the Democratic label and party workers under the Democratic label. Okay? Why? And they have that purpose to hold the party together, to keep there from being kind of a populist uprising or somebody coming in and swinging the party dramatically one direction or the other. without superdelegates. Superdelegates in every single election, it should be noted, just vote for the winner. That's what they have done every single time. So they have a second function, because that 1766 to 1639 is really close, but it gives a much greater illusion of unity when it's 2230 to 1897, right? There's a more clearly defined winner. In 2016, you have Clinton and Sanders. She wins much more handily over Bernie Sanders, 400 votes just in delegates. But with super delegates, it's 1,000, right? Unity. Biden and Sanders in 2020, 2739 to 1119. It's kind of a cakewalk. Republican primaries are completely different. They are also designed in each state by that state's Republican Party. We have to know the rules. Republicans are going to award delegates at conventions. See the gray states? In those gray states, Republicans are going to meet in party conventions that are closed to the public, and they're going to vote for the nominee. The conventions usually come late, and they go with, if there's two people competing, then you might see something more definitive, but if there's one person who's ahead, they'll vote for that person. Okay? These are party workers only. Hybrid, proportional vote. Proportional are the pale green. Those are like the Democrats. You get 60%, you get 65%, you get 40%, you get 35%. But you still get something, okay? The hybrid is partially proportional, but only after a certain amount. And it gives a whole other section. Like if, let's say, you get 35%, they're going to double it for you. So you get 70%, and the other 30% is split between the next two people, okay? So it's much more winner take all. And then winner take all, the dark green winner take all states. And listen to what that means. There are 20 people in the field, you get 25%, you get all the delegates, okay? This changes from state to state. States make the rules. The final tally in 2008, Romney is 1563. Sorry, that should be McCain. Shouldn't it? Yes. Okay. It should be McCain, 1563. So actually, that should be 2012. I'm talking about 2012. Romney gets 1563. All others get 583 in 2012. Okay. In 2016, Trump gets 2472. All others get 2428. It's close. It's close. And also understand that he's getting the benefit of people just saying, oh, it looks like this is who's ahead, right? And those winner-take-all states. In 2020, Trump 2358 to Weld won. All winner-take-all. Weld is the only other candidate who gets any traction. There's also some issues with the Electoral College. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Electoral College when we get to the presidency, but I want to talk about it a little bit now, okay? Under the Electoral College, the vote for president goes like this. Your state determines by your state's rules where the delegates vote, how the delegates vote. All but 2 states are winner take all. You win 50.1% of the vote to 49.9% of the vote, you get all the delegates. You win 48.6 to 47 to 5% of the vote, you get all the votes. Okay? 48 out of 50 states, winner take all. The delegation looks like this. This is how we count it. The number of congressional seats in Oklahoma, that's 5, plus the number of Senate seats. That's 7. That's Oklahoma's total congressional delegation. Okay? In Wyoming, you have 2 senators and how many congressional seats? The answer is 1. 1. And there's 500,000 people in Wyoming. So listen to what I'm saying. In Wyoming, you get 3 votes for president with 500,000 people. In Oklahoma, with 4 million people, you get 7 votes for president. Okay? It just gets distorted the bigger the state gets. People in small states like Wyoming have a much bigger say in who the president is than states that are medium-sized or large states. Okay? Does that make sense? It also distorts the way that we campaign. Because of a winner-take-all system, there's no point in ever coming to a state, there's absolutely 0 point in ever coming to a state that your party holds by 10%. What's the point? So you narrow it to 9%? It doesn't matter. You get absolutely nothing out of it. So after the primaries, neither Democrats nor Republicans show up to Oklahoma or Kansas or Montana or California or New York. Because what's the point? Now, you will see some Republicans show up in Oklahoma for a $1,000 a plate dinner and then leave, right?
It's pretty cheap.
But you're not going to get the advertising and you're not going to get the campaign that you're going to get in battleground states, in states where the margin is more like 5%. Okay? So, where are those battleground states today? You can start to see it. Now, this is a map from 2008, I think. But Florida, still there. Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia less so, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Colorado less so, Arizona, Nevada less so. This is where they're going to show up and you're going to have an opportunity to actually meet the candidate. And they're going to try to specifically speak to you. Otherwise, they do not care because they cannot make a dent in it. So they're not going to show up because with the Electoral College in Nebraska, you get the district, right? That's one that splits it. And in Maine, those are the only places they might go to try to get a margin. Everywhere else, they're not going to show up. They're not going to send out campaign literature. They're not going to advertise. It's going to accentuate the big sort, right? People are in a red state or a blue state, okay? And most disturbing for democracy generally is we end up with presidents who lose the vote. This happens once in the 19th century. This happens twice in the last 20 years, in 2000 and 2016. In both cases, the candidate who was elected president by the Electoral College, because of the outsized power of small states, lost the popular vote. I'm going to take attendance really quickly. Because for some reason I'm still yelling.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, Eric's going to do it. So I can stop yelling for a second. So our next national election is this year. And I'm going to talk to you about voting in just a second, okay? But the very first time that this is going to affect you at the national level are going to be the primaries in June. You ready to go, Eric? Okay, attendance is live. Attendance is live. The very first time it's going to affect you is the primaries in June. What that means is you get an opportunity, if you identify as a Republican or you identify as a Democrat, or lean one way or the other, to determine who the candidate for that party is going to be for this race. We're going to talk about polarization in Congress. We've talked about it a little bit anyway. But understand this. If you want a candidate who is more progressive or more moderate, more centrist, or more conservative, then you make that decision at the primary. Otherwise, you have a Democrat and a Republican, and maybe an independent here and there. So, we're going to talk about voting in just a second. But the key is that June election really matters. And in midterm elections, like this year, there's a lot less media attention. How many of you have gotten a specific political ad that you've come across, like either in your social media, like a specific ad aimed at someone that you would be voting for so far? Eric has? What's your name? Maya. Maya has. Who else? Anybody else? 2 of you have seen political ads. Okay? That is much less voter attention, or much less media attention. Yeah.
Also, the ads like Joe Biden faces
Okay, but that is not a political ad for right now. Now, it is good, kind of a general, hey, look, if you don't like Joe Biden, vote for a Republican, right? But right now, what that is this is general kind of stratosphere out there. What do you think? Rate the president, that sort of thing, okay? But what I'm talking about is I've seen it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I saw an attack ad against the current judicial nominee.
Oh, an attack ad, but we can't vote on that, right? An attack ad against the judicial nominee. I've seen, my Twitter feed has roughly 4 categories. There's politics, there's OU sports, there's cats, and there's dogs, right? Those are my 4 categories in my Twitter feed, all right? So, I see a lot of things about judicial nominees and stuff like that. But in terms of a specific ad targeting someone who's running for office right now, the only one that I've seen is an anti-STID ad.
A lot of those.
And there are a lot of anti-STID ads that we see from the tribes also, but not really from the Democratic Party yet.
Mine was county commissioner.
What?
Mine was a mailer on county commissioner.
A county commissioner mailer. Nice. Okay. Have anybody gotten? Oh, you guys don't get mail yet.
Mail.
Never mind. Wait, you'll get it. Yeah. You're added to someone's campaign newsletter. I added you. I'm just joking.
It's probably that Madison Horn.
Yeah. Madison Horn?
See? She added me too.
I wonder if this is like spit out to OU students.
I got that one as well.
How many of you got a Madison Horn email? Interesting. Sent out to OU students, I bet. The OU listserv has been hacked. That's a note. Okay?
Is that legal? No?
But there's a lot less media attention. Right now, the media is not paying attention to who's running for what office. They really aren't. And they're just not making it a priority. There's also much lower voter turnout. Okay? Now, the last midterms that we had in 2018, we had really high voter turnout in Oklahoma. And I would say, actually, some of the highest voter turnout Oklahoma's had, much higher than presidential, in years. Can anybody tell me why? At the primary, we had such high voter turnout in 2018? Yep.
Well, Oklahoma, like you said before, is a red state. There's not a lot of decision you really make if you're a Democrat. As far as the presidential elections or for the midterm elections or by district and stuff, you actually have, you might actually be able to get a Democrat if you're a Democrat.
You're absolutely correct. The truth is, if you are a Democrat in Oklahoma, you should vote in primaries and midterms. They're going to matter more to you than presidential races. There's no question about that. But in 2018, the reason why somebody turned out was not for one party or the other. It's because medical marijuana was on the ballot. So sometimes there are state questions too. I know, right? It is funny. Someone's away. But they tend to be more ideologically skewed, right? And the president's party, and this is significant, okay, you guys? Because listen, you're going to listen to a lot of analysts. And let's say after the election, in the House of Representatives, the Democrats lose 5 seats. That's actually a win for them if they only lose 5 seats, okay? Because almost always, the president's party is going to lose seats in the House of Representatives at a midterm, okay? And there's a reason for it, right? When the president comes into office with the majority of the vote, the president's going to sweep along on his coattails. In the last class, I got an email from somebody, and they wanted to know what I meant by cocktails. I'm not talking about cocktails. Coattails, they're sweeping it along, and they're sweeping them into office, okay? And what happens is because fewer people vote who are more ideologically centered, we see kind of some balance restored. That's what's happening at the midterms. And so with that restoration of balance, then the president's party loses seats. Almost always. There are 2 exceptions, and they've happened really recently. What happened in 1998? What's happening in 1998? What? No, 2000's the Al Gore election, but it's the midterms before that. What happens in 1998? Who's president in 1998? Bill Clinton is president.
Oh, Monica Lewinsky.
Monica Lewinsky is happening in 1998. That is correct, okay? There are impeachment trials going on for the president, okay? And this is significant, okay? Because a couple of things happen. The president is being impeached for perjury, okay? For lying about having sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. This is what he's being impeached for, okay? But here's the deal. The House, it's a very political impeachment. Impeachments tend to be somewhat more political, but it's a very political impeachment. Says, oh yes, and they go after him, full bore. But there's this guy who owns Hustler magazine. You guys know what Hustler magazine is? Very important in politics. You guys know what Hustler magazine is?
It's an adult magazine.
Huh? It is an adult magazine, yes, okay. Somebody in my earlier class said kind of a knockoff Playboy. Yeah, I mean, more or less, okay. But the owner of Hustler magazine says, hey, you know what? I'll give anybody $100,000 who comes to me with proof that any of the people that are leading the impeachment are actually involved in extramarital affairs. Takes down 6. And so the American people are like, what are you doing? Right? What are you doing? Bill Clinton, and we're going to talk about this when we get to the president later. Bill Clinton goes into the impeachment, more popular than when he was elected, right? He comes out of it the most popular president since Eisenhower. Think about that. Okay? So in 1998, Democrats gained congressional seats. In 2000, I've talked about it earlier in a slide, what happens in the 2000 election? Al Gore, George Bush, what happened? What? Get a recount in several places. Florida, one of them, right? Yeah.
It was like trying to decide the Supreme Court on the recount.
Yeah, there's a little bit of chatter about that right now, right?
Oh yeah.
So, but in 2000, George Bush wins the Electoral College vote, but Al Gore wins the popular vote, which means that who gets the coattails? Al Gore, because coattails go with popular vote, not with Electoral College. And so, some more Democrats get swept into office. They'd already won in 1998. They get more in 2000, okay? But in 2002, so just 4 years after that first anomaly, we have a second anomaly. And George W. Bush, the Republican Party, gets more seats in Congress in 2002 during the midterms. Why? 9/11. Without question. Let's show unity for the president. Done. Okay? So, two anomalies. So it's not like it doesn't happen, but it's a general rule. If the Democrats don't lose seats, or lose very few seats in 2022, then that's a win. Okay? It's a win for them. Because there is considered to be this rule. Okay. So, I keep losing my clicker because I keep putting it down. This is what you guys need to know about campaign structure. It's very structured. There's the top, there's the middle. It depends on volunteers. If you want political experience, go volunteer. I just lost my undergrad worker because he was working as a volunteer for the Langford campaign, and now he's getting paid. So he's left me. I have no one to clean my office anymore. It's very upsetting. Anybody wants a job? So, right? So, but it's very upsetting to me, right? But I understand what's going on. These campaigns rely on volunteers across the board. They're college students, high school students. They rely on you. They also rely on all the old ladies who run the political organizations, and I say old ladies for a reason, because it's old ladies, who run the political organizations in the counties. Have any of you ever been to a Cleveland County Democrats or Cleveland County Republicans meeting? Okay, who's there? And did they say to you, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you here. It's good to see the youth." Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, that's what they do. And then you never go back because you're like, "Oh, I'm creeped out." Okay, go to these things. If you need a grandmother, this is the way to get one. Okay, because they do all this work and they do it thanklessly. There's no question about it. That said, the way these campaigns are structured, they're structured like a business, like I said, very hierarchical. But they're played like a sport. They're played to win, and they do not follow the rules if they can help it. If there's a way to bend a rule, they will bend it. If there's a new rule, they're going to implement it to their advantage. Okay? The object is to win. It does not matter how dirty it is. You know, we've walked out of sporting events, we all have, either playing or watching, and gone, "Oh, that was ugly," right? But we won, it's okay. Right? That's what happens. But we won, it's okay. This is exactly it. "Oh, that was ugly, but we won, it's okay." Same thing, okay? This is kind of the structure here. The legal team just stays out and says things like, "You really shouldn't do that," or "Yes, this is technically okay," and then they go forward, right? Okay. In terms of strategy, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to think about who's likely to change their vote. Who is likely to change their vote? What kinds of people? The uninformed. The uninformed are the first. They're the most likely to change their vote. They're the most likely to be swayed by a decent campaign. They're the most likely to be swayed by charisma. Okay? That's number one. Number two, disaffected groups. Groups that maybe have been loyal to one party, but that party hasn't given them what they want. Show them that you can give them something else, they'll show up for you. But here's the deal. All of this is going to be focused on how to get the most bang out of your buck, right? You have limited resources. You have limited resources. And so if the economic conditions favor you, focus on it because it's easy for people to understand economics, right? And I'll show you some ads. Well, It's easy for people to believe they understand economics. There we go. But people, they perceive certain things. So in 1984, when Reagan runs this ad that I'm going to show you guys on Wednesday, where he said, it's morning again in America, he's specifically saying, aren't things better than they were just 4 short years ago? Right? Not in my family, but, it worked. It's a thing that works, okay? Otherwise, you're going to focus on things outside of that. There's also party ownership of issues. So I'm going to ask you some questions. You ready? Who owns the issue of business? Who owns it? Which party? Republican Party owns business. Who owns education?
Democrats.
Democrats own education. Who owns pro-life?
Republicans.
Republicans own pro-life. Who owns anti-Russia? Democrats own anti-Russia. And they didn't 10 years ago. Who owns the military? Republicans, yet anti-Russia. It's possible that there is a sea change happening. Right? Ownership of issues matters. You can run on those issues and plan on your base. Okay? Plus, as Eric pointed out today while we were sitting in, that there's been a 4% called for increase in the military under Biden's budget.
Yeah.
That's giant. That's a giant increase. Suddenly, do Republicans own the military? And so we see changes, right? We see changes.
I think
For example, briefly, Republicans are going to own education in 2000 because of No Child Left Behind. But then No Child Left Behind. So
I think that's one of the largest increases in decades.
it is. It's one of the largest increases since Reagan.
Yeah.
4%. All right. So you are going to get out the vote. But the thing is you're going to, the very best way to get people to vote for you is to meet them, right? You guys, whether you like me or not, are much more likely to vote for me than somebody you've never met. Because you met me. Okay? If I shake your hand, if I go to your door, if I'm at an event, if I say hi to you, and look, if I was a good politician, which I'm not, I would know your brother's name, I would know the name of your newborn baby's dad, but I don't. But congratulations, right? When we talk about that, when we talk about being a good politician, that's somebody being able to say to me, yeah, weren't you planning on doing this? When we had talked 5 years before, right? Bill Clinton, he's a master. He can remember anything about anybody. And it's what made him so good at what he did. So, we're going to focus on getting out the vote on people who vote. Yeah.
I actually have a government teacher in the high school with Bill Clinton. One of the things they mentioned about hockey.
Yeah, he's pretty talented, right? He can talk you into anything, but one of the ways that he does that is he remembers who you are, right? I mean, why should you guys, whenever you come up to me 5 years from now and say, I was in your American federal government class, and I say, sorry, right? I mean, or, oh yeah, I kind of remember you. Did you sit over here, right? I mean, that's something, okay? But he remembers things like names and children, okay? Direct contact campaigns focus on the base rather than mobilizing new voters. Why do they focus on the base rather than mobilizing new voters? Zach? It's easier to get people to vote who have already voted, okay? And this is one of the things we're going to do in this class. This is brand new research, okay? I can talk to you guys till I'm blue in the face about how it's important to vote. I can give you voter registration forms. I give you extra credit for registering to vote. But you know what will make you vote? Is if I sit down with you and help you fill out the form, and I show you how a ballot works, and I take you to a precinct, you'll vote. How many of you went to go vote with your parents at one point? How many of you ever went and voted with your parents? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You guys are much more likely to vote because you saw it happen, right? It's kind of one of those things. It's a non-cognitive skill. It's just the ability to follow through on a particular series of steps, right? How do you ride a bus? Have any of you ever tried to ride a bus before who've never ridden a bus? I mean, like in a city? I have. I usually just give up. I'll be honest, I just get a taxi and I pay extra. Because I don't want to go through the steps. Because I don't want to learn how to do that. It's the same exact thing. Right? And this isn't hard. People do it every day. It's just learning how to do those things. Voting is skewed by, this is important, income, education, age, work status, family structure, and social networks. And what that means is this. The more money you make, the more likely you are to vote. The more education you have, the more likely you are to vote. The older you are, the more likely you are to vote. If you work in a salary job as opposed to an hourly job, you're more likely to vote. If you're married, you're more likely to vote. If you do things like belong to clubs, like churches, or the Chamber of Commerce, or the Rotary Club, then you're more likely to vote. You guys don't vote in Norman elections. Why not? What? What?
Not residents.
You're not residents of Norman. You are. I mean, you are residents of Norman. You've lived here more than 6 months. You're a resident of Norman. But it doesn't feel like that. This is a temporary thing for you. And so you don't put down roots, and so you don't vote. Do the politics of Norman affect you? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you don't feel connected to it. The more you feel connected to your community, your very close community, the more likely you are to vote in national elections. How crazy is that? Youth voters do not participate as much, so campaigns don't care about you. I mean, they want you to come do their work for you, but they're not really worried about getting you out to vote. So, how do campaigns know who to focus on? They use big data, okay? Specifically, what you buy, what you browse for on the internet, is all compiled and put through statistical analyses, and they can tell you what issues you care about, and if you're going to vote, and who you're going to vote for, and then they're going to target you. You'll start noticing this. You'll start noticing this in your feeds, right? But I'll guarantee you, it pays off a lot more to put ads in a Facebook feed than it does in a TikTok feed. Why? Because old people vote, and old people are on Facebook, and with the exception of my father-in-law, who's super hip, tells me about the new Adele album that dropped. People aren't on, that was a joke. It was a joke. Old people don't get on TikTok, all right?
My neighbors aren't too good on that.
Campaign finance rules are confusing, okay? Self-funding is unlimited, but it takes a whole lot of money for it to make a difference. Non-candidate coordinated campaigning is unlimited, and the sources of funds are often hidden. Add that to Citizens United, in which the Supreme Court decided in a 5-4 decision that corporations are people, and understand what that means, okay? Corporations are people, and so therefore have freedom of speech, and therefore their money is unlimited, okay? But corporations cannot go to jail, can you? Yeah. Corporations cannot be jailed. Their officers cannot be jailed. They're not held to the same standard as humans are, but they're still people in terms of their money. It's going to lead to the creation of super PACs to raise and spend money on behalf of candidates. There's a lot of money here. I'm going to show you some Stephen Colbert. and then we're gonna probably,
I have a super PAC, Colbert Super PAC.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, the difference between a PAC and a super PAC is a cover letter. Because I formed a PAC, but a PAC can only take so much money and can only spend so much money. And I wanted to spend unlimited amounts of money and receive, more importantly, unlimited amounts of money. And so my lawyer told me all I had to do was add a cover letter that said, I intend this to be a super PAC. And it was a super PAC.
And it all happened by accident. I just said, maybe let's get the URL colbertpac.com just for fun for my show. And the network called and said, you just bought a political action committee website. Are you really going to get a political action committee? And I said, why do you ask?